Hello, this is Robert Alexander Jones with a message for William Hague MP. I left you a telephone message earlier, and the secretary told me to send you an email. So I thought I've got this new computer, so I could do a video, put it on YouTube, and then send you a link, so you can have a video message. But the only problem with that is anyone can see it. But it doesn't matter because, as you know very well, I don't mind if lots of people see the videos I put on YouTube. The whole idea is that you want lots of people to see it. Yeah? So, and there's no such thing as bad publicity. So, what the message is about is, do you remember when Tony Blair was Prime Minister and he wanted to join the Euro? And the opposition to him joining the Euro was ineffectual. 80% of people wanted to save the pound, so Mr. Blair, if he was going to join the Euro, had to sell the idea. And the Murdoch press was against, and the BBC were for. Okay? Now, Michael Portillo was talking about some sovereignty things, sort of touchy-feely issues, nothing of any consequence to the general public, basically. Not what they're interested in, and have no relevance to them. But what I did was get to the nitty-gritty issues, the technical aspects of the European single currency and what it would mean for this country. Now, what it would mean is what it means for all countries is that your interest rates are set by the European Central Bank based on a European weighted average of inflation data. Now, that would mean that Britain no longer sets her own interest rates. And the point of interest rates, as you know, is to control inflation. So I wrote to Work and Lunch and pointed this out, and I think the BBC cooled a little on the Euro idea. Not only that, because at the time Gordon Brown was talking about joining the Euro at an appropriate rate, and that meant devaluing the pound by 15%. So you give a pound away, and they would give you 85 pence worth of euros back. Okay, so the entire country would be 15% poorer overnight. All our imports would cost 15% more. That's expensive. Okay? Now, I wrote to John Redwood MP, putting the same argument, because we'll leave it to trying to get the whole shadow cabinet government, or whole opposition to take it up, saying that if you've got the total number of pounds, multiplied it by 0.15, that will give you the price in pounds for joining the Euro at the time. Okay? Now, that has led me on to find out about what the total number of pounds really is. And when I found out, I was quite surprised. But I left out a little bit of bait for the Prime Minister, because I do like to have those quite fun. Like my little pick a pocket or two jibe. Tony Blair thought, that's a good idea. I'll run that poster campaign about Michael Howard and have to apologise for anti-Semitism. It's like, they didn't realise that. Well, I did, but anyway. Yeah, I said, you could, in theory, use taxes to control inflation if we joined the euro. Because if we joined the euro, we wouldn't use interest rates. We'd have the European interest rates, but if they were wrong for our economy, it wouldn't work. It'd be too low. We'd get inflation, instability, bust. So I suggested you could use tax. That's a kind of half a suggestion. And Blair took it up. He took the bait. He went and announced to the press that he was going to use taxes instead of interest rates to control inflation in the European single currency. And that's a really stupid thing to do, because I rang you up at the time and I said, he's done it, he's taken the bait. I made that suggestion just to see if he'd do it. It showed he didn't understand what it was talking about. He didn't understand the technical aspects of the controlling of the economy. So how is this supposed to work? So inflation goes up, taxes, but you can't spend the extra revenue. Okay? The economy has boomed, taxed it to stop prices spiraling out of control, okay, to throttle demand. But you can't spend that extra revenue. You can only spend that when the economy slows down again. So if you spend it while the economy is overheating, the very spending will fuel the inflation you're trying to prevent. So if you keep that money, so this would be the Independent Inflation Control Authority of Great Britain idea that I put forward to use tax. Then tax would be a mathematical function of economic performance. Now, if you do that, no politician ever again will be allowed to touch the taxes. You couldn't, okay? Because tax, the purpose of tax would be to control prices, okay? So if you want to stand for elections, I'm going to spend more money, you can't. If you want to stand for elections, say I'm going to cut taxes, you can't. Okay? Because you're not allowed to touch any of the taxes, because they are set by the Independent Inflation Control Authority. Okay? That was profound. Yeah? And Blair just walked away from it and thought, oh yeah, well that's the interest rate problem solved. No, it hadn't. It has shown Blair being completely without comprehension of the technicalities. And I was a little bit disappointed that he didn't expose his educational weakness on that occasion. But getting back to my point, if you multiplied the total number of pounds by 0.15, that would have given you the cost in pounds of joining the euro at the time, plus the cost of changing the tills around and changing the notes, the bank notes, and all the hardware costs, changing if the note size is different, the cash points are changing, and so on. On top of the fact you'd be 15% poorer overnight. So, what is the total number of pounds? And I watched this Google video called Money as Debt. Now, Google videos, like YouTube, it's for longer documentaries. And it turns out that there is no total number of pounds. The total number of pounds changes all the time because of the way the fractional reserve banking system works. We've got a fractional reserve banking system. It started under Charles II, I think. That we needed money to fund expansion into the Americas. There wasn't enough money to lend to people to buy all the ships and things that needed to go across the Atlantic to the Americas. So we started the fractional reserve system, with a reserve of 2 to 1. That if a bank had 1, you could lend 2 out in loans. Now, how does that work? Because that money is made out of thin air. That's how it works. So I didn't know this. A lot of people didn't know this. Apparently, a lot of economists think that inflation is something to do with supply and demand. But it's not. It's to do with the monetary system. When banks are lending money, they're creating more and more and more units of sterling. And so every single individual unit of sterling is worth less and less and less and less. Okay, so that's why when Alistair Darling borrowed all that money recently, the pound dropped against the euro. Because it would, because the total number of pounds is higher, so the value of each individual pound is lower. Then you can understand it. But if you don't understand the way the bank system works, the BBC, it's obviously quite secret because the BBC don't want to tell you about these things. They lost their credibility on 9/11. They've gone on to do it since with their fairy stories. They put Frank Gardner on, people just think, oh, what lies they want to tell us now. There's terrorism. There's a man hiding in a cave. And no, we all know that it's the American version of the burning of the Reichstag. And Tony, he had his "We are all in mortal danger" speech. Islamic terrorists are conspiring to bring about Armageddon, he said. He's trying to pretend to be the Messiah again. And then he made his speech look prophetic by blowing up the Madrid trains. 4 people arrested, all British, one of them Hindu. It wasn't really attention to detail. It was continuity errors, like a bad